Episode 9 of The Bad Batch. This is exactly what I wanted from The Bad Batch from the beginning. And we are finally in this phase of The Bad Batch where I think we're in this amazing story now. Alright, so the beginning of it was a bunch of... I don't like using the word filler, but it almost felt like filler. You know, there wasn't a whole lot going on. There was a lot of extra side missions that we didn't really care about. And now they are finally getting to the point. Episode 8, Bounty Lost, which is 28 minutes long. I think it's a little shorter than that, actually. But we're finally back into the really good stuff. I still think Episode 8, Reunion, was the best one so far outside of the premiere. Although I think overall, Reunion for me is like my personal favorite. But I think Bounty Lost is up there within Battle Scars and Reunion, so the last two. It fits right up in there. These last three are like one little story arc in a way, where they all just go right off the other. So you go from Battle Scars and you go right to Reunion, right to Bounty Lost. It's all one after the other. You don't really like take any breaks. You know, it's like you watch it all at once and you'll get like this little movie almost. So episode 8, Bounty Lost, we pick up with Cad Bane. Luckily we get to see a lot of Cad Bane in this one. I was really worried that we might not see a lot of Cad Bane. So the episode starts out with a Bad Batch. They are being chased by Crosshair and the Empire, and they have to escape them first before they can even go after Omega. So there's Crosshair. He's not looking good right now. He's really not looking good. So Crosshair's definitely had it rough. We're going to have to see where that goes. But they do get away from the Empire and Crosshair. They jump into hyperspace, and then they go after Omega, who is now captured by Cad Bane. Cad Bane is, of course, going to deliver Omega to the Kaminoans and Lama Su so they can experiment on her and use her for whatever plans they have for, I would assume, maybe like a theory like Phase 3, some type of cloning thing that they're trying to do. They're really focusing heavily on cloning. Of course, it's a whole show about clones, so it makes sense. In this scene with Cad Bane, you can see that he's got like a plate on his head now. This was not visible on Cad Bane in previous seasons. This has led some to believe that maybe he has already faced Boba Fett. But we jump to Kamino again, where the Kaminoans are, Cad Bane has let them know that he has Omega, and he is coming to deliver Omega and claim his obvious bounty. He's going to get his money. So once we get to this part, Cad Bane logs off. He brings Nala Se to the side and says he's going to send somebody else to retrieve the bounty instead, although Nala Se does want Omega safe and sound. So back on Cad Bane's ship, of course, Todo 360 is still broken from the standoff between Hunter and Cad Bane, and Omega offers to help him out and fix his leg, which of course Todo 360 is not the smartest droid, and he ends up letting Omega out. It almost looks like Cad Bane is on some sort of planet that looks like, I initially thought it was Bespin, where Cloud City was. I believe it's somewhere a little different. I don't know if we have a confirmation of which planet it was, but it looks really cool. It's a really cool shot right here. And ultimately they land on the planet. Omega is out and she escaped. She tricked Todo 360 to escape, and she got off the ship once they landed, and Cad Bane had to chase her down. And while Cad Bane is chasing her down, there's another bounty hunter after Omega. We already saw her. That's right, Fennec Shand from The Mandalorian. So this is her second appearance now in The Bad Batch, and the battle between bounty hunters begins. And it's a really cool fight scene throughout this whole episode, and it's kind of cool to see these bounty hunters. This new bounty hunter that we just recently got introduced to in The Mandalorian, and now we're seeing this older bounty hunter that we have known for many years now with Cad Bane in the Clone Wars, and we're seeing them head to head after Omega. They want the bounty, and that's kind of what we see here, and it's really cool. It's very, very cool, and they're a pretty even match in this episode. I almost thought maybe Cad Bane would be a little bit better than this, but maybe he's just a little rusty, he's getting older, I don't know. But yeah, they're a pretty even match, so not one is really better than the other. It's a pretty even fight throughout the episode. And Omega, of course, while they're fighting, kind of wanders off and runs around through this place, and this is the rendezvous place, of course. She runs into this cloning facility area, and I would assume this is where the Kaminoans did stuff. It looks like this is an abandoned one, and there's these weird vats of whatever. There's like things in these chambers, and they're like clone stuff. So Star Wars is recently getting really into the cloning stuff. We did see it in The Rise of Skywalker. I didn't really like that movie, But The Rise of Skywalker saw that with Snoke. We saw like similar stuff like this with Snoke in there. And then The Mandalorian is doing cloning stuff too with, Grogu and Baby Yoda. And we actually saw clones and similar stuff like this as well in kind of like the middle of season 2. So we're really diving into cloning stuff for Disney Star Wars. And I'm interested to see where we go with this. But of course, Fennec Shand got the upper hand on Cad Bane for the moment, and she wandered off to go find Omega, and Omega kind of breaks one of the vats. She lets it loose on the machine where she was trying to contact the Bad Batch, so she was ultimately entering the systems in the place there to contact the Bad Batch and let them know where she is, of course. And while she's in there, she lets the vat loose, the chamber loose. It crashes on the floor. This creepy looking alien thing or whatever this cloning thing was or whatever it was, lets it loose onto Fennec, and then she falls on the ground to get it up. It's really gross. But then the fight between Cad Bane and Fennec Shand continues. At one point, Cad Bane does get the upper hand where he headbutts Fennec Shand with his head plate thing again. So I'm very interested to see if we ever learn about the head plate, if it was with the Boba Fett interaction or not. But I really do like the theory that it was because of Boba Fett, and maybe Cad Bane had some procedures done on him or some type of thing like that. But that plate on his head there was not present before, and I would love to know why it was put there and why he has it there now. It's maybe a pretty interesting story. But again, it's a pretty even fight. It's a pretty cool fight as well. And at one point, I thought Cad Bane was a goner. I really was worried for Cad Bane mostly through this fight. I really like Cad Bane. I didn't want to see him die I didn't want to see him die just yet. So I was really hoping he'd survive this fight. And I almost thought he died. I literally almost thought he died at this point. Fennec Shand threw him off the ledge, and he was just free falling. But of course, Cad Bane has his thrusters on his ankles, and he's fine. And Cad Bane lives to fight another day, but Fennec Shand gets away. So, speaking throughout all that, of course, Omega did get away on a escape pod on this facility, and she makes her way back to the Bad Batch. So obviously the Bad Batch find her. She was able to contact them, and everything's good. So she made it back to the Bad Batch, and that's where she ends up staying till the end of the episode. Of course, we see a reunion between Hunter and Omega, which is always nice to see. And then we cut back to Cad Bane, who tries to tries to fly off after the Bad Batch and Omega, but cannot because he was sabotaged by Fennec Shand. So Fennec Shand was one step ahead of Cad Bane in this scenario, which is unfortunate. I really would have loved seeing Cad Bane do some really cool stuff. Maybe we will see him do some really cool stuff in the future of the show. He's still after Omega, I would believe. So, it's interesting to see where they're going to go with Cad Bane. I really do hope they do more with him, though. They're definitely going to end up doing more with Fennec Shand, though. And speaking of Fennec Shand, we do see her in the end of the episode as well, and she is talking to Nala Se. Nala Se has actually hired, it seems like Nala Se has actually hired Fennec Shand to keep Omega safe and keep Omega out of the hands of Lama Su, who wants to experiment on Omega and, proceed with experiments for another phase of clone troopers or whatever for the Empire so he can, get in good with the Empire. But Nala Se obviously wants to protect Omega over, this whole new program that Lama Su is now trying to implement, and she is very protective of Omega, and she does not want Omega hurt, and she has hired Fennec Shand to essentially just keep Omega out of the hands of Lama Su. So I would believe the whole plan all along was to kind of just let Omega go with the Bad Batch, so she wants to make sure that Omega is just out of the hands of Lama Su, which was a very interesting twist at the end of the episode. Now, what I did forget to mention throughout all that, I was trying to go through very quickly. Omega is a very important clone. So we discovered that Omega is a direct clone from Jango Fett. Now, Jango Fett, of course, another direct clone from Jango Fett is Boba Fett. Now, Boba Fett was officially name dropped in this episode. They said Boba, the Bad Batch and Tech were looking up, why Omega was so special, and they ran across another clone who was a direct, a direct clone from Jango Fett himself, who was Boba Fett, and obviously Boba Fett is an unaltered clone of Jango Fett, and now one is presuming that maybe Omega is the same case, except, obviously something happened where she ended up being a female clone. But it is a very, very fascinating twist in the story, and I think a lot of the theories of Omega being Force sensitive are kind of fading, and it would make sense now why she's just such a good shot, and why she's got something special about her. Maybe it's just because she's a direct clone of Jango Fett. She's just that good. Jango Fett was just that good. That's why they used him for the clone template. So it would make sense, and it's very, very interesting, because now you could say, with this storyline being introduced, Boba Fett has a little sister now. Maybe we could see her show up in the Book of Boba Fett. I don't know. I honestly don't know anymore. We're going to have to see where the storyline goes. Omega being a direct clone from Jango Fett means she was created before Jango Fett was killed by Mace Windu. So that means Omega is perfect for the Kaminoans to use to get better DNA. They could go after Boba, but I don't know. They know where Omega is, and they have no idea where Boba Fett even is, but they know where Omega is, so it makes sense for them to go after her. But Boba Fett and Omega so far are the two clones out there that would be perfect for Kamino and the Kaminoans right now, and obviously Omega is the one they're after. Episode 9 of The Bad Batch, Bounty Lost. Very good episode. It got a little longer again. I'm very glad that these episodes are kind of, they've met their, range of length. I don't think they're going to get much shorter than the 25-minute episode of Decommissioned. I think it's in that range of 25 minutes to 28, 29 minutes, maybe even a half hour. But really good episode. Definitely recommend it. I hope it keeps this pace.